things are tragic and difficult, but there's always some stupid thing that you could do that could make it even worse than it has to be. So that's life. And you need an antidote to that, because that can embitter you. If you ask a disagreeable person what he wants, say, or she wants, they'll tell you right away. They know. It's like, this is what I want and this is how I'm going to get it. But agreeable people, especially if they're really agreeable, are so agreeable that they often don't even know what they want, because they're so accustomed to living for other people and to finding out what other people want and to trying to make them comfortable and so forth, that it's harder for them to find a sense of their own desires as they move through life. Look, there's situations where that's advantageous, but it's certainly not advantageous if you're going to try to forge yourself a career. That just doesn't work at all. I think it's best sort of conceptualized as a trading game. So let's say that we're going to play repeated trading games, and if you're very agreeable, then you're going to bargain harder on my behalf than you're going to bargain on your own behalf. Whereas if you're very disagreeable, you're going to do the reverse. You're going to think, I'm in this trading game for me, and you are going to take care of your own interests. Where an agreeable person is going to say, no, at worst, this has to be 50-50, but I'd like to help you every way I can. One of the things you have to be careful of if you're agreeable is not to be exploited, because you'll line up to be exploited. And I think the reason for that is because you're wired to be exploited by infants. And one of the things I tell agreeable people, especially if they're conscientious, is say what you think. Tell the truth about what you think. There's going to be things you think are nasty and harsh. And they probably are nasty and harsh, but they're also probably true. And you need to bring those up to the forefront and deliver the message. And it's not straightforward at all, because agreeable people do not like conflict. Not at all. They smooth the water. The problem with that is it's not a very good medium to long-term strategy, because lots of times there are things you have to talk about because they're not going to go away. And the advantage to having a well-socialized disagreeable person is that they really don't let much get in their way. So if you can get a kid who's disagreeable socialized, that person can be quite the creature, because they're very forward-moving in their nature and very difficult to stop. But if you don't get them successfully domesticated, tamed, roughly speaking, by the time they're 4, their peers reject them. Many men are petrified by women. They won't approach them at all. Men get confused with women. They have no idea how to talk to them. They're just petrified into immobility, And that's the problem too. If you're chronically rejected by people, it's often because of your own insufficiencies. You can't just brush it off as, no one likes me, but really I'm okay. It's like, no, wrong. If everyone rejects you, there's probably something wrong. So imagine you had men who could confer benefit and who were incapable of inflicting cost, and men who could confer benefit but were capable of inflicting cost. I think you'd see winners on that side because of that free rider problem. And that ties into what we'll discuss in relationship to the dark triad, because there's some mystery about why women seem to be attracted to these so-called dark triad traits. And I would say that they're using them as insufficient markers for the ability to or the acquisition of status. And narcissists capitalize on that, right? Because a narcissist looks confident. And lots of confident people are competent. But some confident people aren't competent, but they can fool you. Yes. And then I think the other explanation is that if you had to choose between a benefit conferrer who could punish free riders and one who couldn't, you should pick the former. If you're more compassionate, more empathic, you're going to feel the hunger of other people and you'd be more motivated to care for them, let's say. But it's also possible that low agreeableness has something to do with, perhaps hunting prowess. That might be part of it. And so women are in a conundrum with agreeableness, right? Because they need a mate who's agreeable enough so they can bond with them and that will care for their children and that cares in general. But they need someone who's disagreeable enough so that they're capable, let's say, of dealing with free riders. Women are attracted to some degree to the lower agreeable types, and I think that accounts for the bad boy paradox that you described, at least in part.
You can tell people who are committed and those people who don't feel worthy. The people that are committed are busy doing it. The people that don't feel worthy are like a guy I talked to last night who told me, hey, I sure like to do what you're doing. However, I just don't want the responsibility. The company I work for, they're taking good care of me. I say, let me tell you something. Once you increase your sense of worthiness, you won't even be able to open your mouth saying that somebody is taking care of you. You want to take care of yourself. But see, because he doesn't feel worthy, he's intelligent, 17 years from a major corporation. They've spent thousands of dollars training him. He knows he has the book knowledge, but his attitude is, his vision of himself, his sense of deservingness says, you can't have that. So he will fabricate all kinds of excuses on why he can't have it. Robert Anthony said something. Robert Anthony said that you can only have two things in life, reasons or results. Notice, reasons don't count. I like that. Folks will always point out reasons on why they're not living their dream, on why they're not manifesting their greatness. They will always be able to point those things out, but none of those things count. The only thing that counts are results. And results don't lie, ladies and gentlemen. They tell it all. Judge a tree by the fruit that it bears, not the ones that it might talk about, not the ones that it might wish for, or think about, or affirm about, but the fruit that it actually bears. So let us look. I think that all of us are committed. But I think that some of us are producing results in our lives that level of commitment brings that we particularly don't like or find distasteful. I don't think that as a participant in life, you cannot be committed. You're either committed to mediocrity or you're committed to greatness. You're either committed to being productive or you're committed to being non-productive. You're committed to being happy or you're committed to being unhappy. See, whatever you're doing, however you spend your time, that tells you who you are. So think about what it is you like to create in your life experience. I believe that there are three types of people in life. There are winners, there are losers, and there are winners who've not discovered how to win yet. And these individuals, there's something about them that drives them, that they will invest in themselves. They go to seminars and workshops and lectures, and they're seeking, there's something in them that says, I can do better than this. That there are people who would be glad to be where they are and would be happy, but they're not. How many of you know if you had your life to live over again, you can do more than what you've done thus far? Raise your hands. I was reading a story about George Bernard Shaw, who was a very brilliant man in his day, and I love to quote him. But one of the things that was asked George Bernard Shaw that really resonated with me at the end of his life, somebody asked him, if you had to be anybody in the world, anybody throughout history, if you had the power to be born again, who would you like to come back as? And without blinking, he said, I'd like to be born as the man I never was. I like to be the man I never was, and I never became. Seeking to connect with that person. There's another person here that you're looking at. There's somebody else back there. And every chair in this place, there are two people in this place in every chair. You're in the chair with somebody else. There's another person back there. You know they're back there. And that person is the person that you want to become connected with. And sometimes you do. Sometimes you've had some experiences where you said, I can't believe I'm doing this. How many have ever done that, please? That you surprise yourself. Well, every time I speak, I see this as such a sacred opportunity. Because when I look back on my life, and this Les Brown that you see was in bondage for so many years, didn't come out till late in my life. How many of you ever thought about something you wanted to do? You felt it in your heart. You couldn't explain it. You felt it in your heart. And you talked yourself out of it. Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. I talked myself out of it. No one did it to me but me. The forte of fruiters is not in our stars, but in ourselves that we are underlings.
Subscribe to Betherefirst channel for more content.